I never imagined that something as ordinary as a recipe card would make me so emotional, but it has. And so I want to do a little story time with you. Then later in the video, I have the most hilarious story about my mother's Christmas gift, and that I think any woman watching this video is so gonna relate to. So let me tell you about my mother's Christmas gift. So not too long ago, I was at my mother's house and I asked her, Mom, what's on your Christmas list? And she just kind of said the same thing as always. She wanted some new gowns or some new house slippers. She actually mentioned that she might want a new blanket to kind of cuddle up with when she's in her recliner in their living room. My mother is in very bad health. She does not get around well. She has to use a walker to walk around the house. Still, that is not great. She's in a lot of pain. If you've been on my channel, I've mentioned that my mother had cancer. She went through chemotherapy, and that was about a year and a half ago when the chemo was finished. But since then, she has developed severe neuropathy. Her legs are numb. That's why she has a hard time walking. The neuropathy is in her arms. She has a hard time using her hands. She can't really grip a fork too well. She certainly, has a hard time using scissors or a knife or even picking up things or holding the telephone. It's just a very bad situation. My mother spends a lot of time in her recliner in the living room watching television, so she mentioned she might want a new blanket. So in this conversation with my mother about some things she might want for Christmas, she said, Renee, I think I want a recipe book. My mother has always had this recipe box full of all of her handwritten recipe cards and very small, beautiful little handwriting on 3x5 recipe cards. Ever since I can remember when I was a little girl, this has been her recipe box. And you can tell how loved and used this is by the smudgy fingerprints all over the top of it. Well, she said, Renee, I would love a recipe book that I could put my recipe cards in, because her recipe box was so stuffed full. She just, didn't have the mobility in her hands to get in there and find the recipes that she wanted. And I thought that was a fantastic idea. So I went on Amazon and I found a recipe binder. It is a hardback book with clear pages, and it does have pages that you add into the book for categories, and it comes with clear pages that you slip your cards in, and you can organize everything and put it into a book. And I thought that was a fantastic idea. So I bought this book, got it on Amazon, sat down yesterday to organize my mother's recipe cards into this book. So earlier this week, and this is important so that you'll understand my funny story, I decorated her Christmas tree a few weeks ago, and she has no gifts under the tree because my mother is not able to go out and Christmas shop. So my sister and I do all the shopping. We get all the gifts, we wrap them, and then we take them and put them under my mom's tree. So I needed to get my mom's recipe card out of her house without her noticing so that I had time to organize the book. So a couple days ago, I used the excuse, hey Mom, I'm coming over. I've got some gifts I'm going to put under your tree. But my dad knew that while I was there, he had to sneak my mom's recipe card outside to me. So we made the exchange. I came home with the recipe card. I sat down the other day to sort all of these recipes. I needed to sort them by category, the recipes that I knew she used more than others, because there was no way all those recipes were going to fit into this binder. So I sat down. This was going to be my whole afternoon's project. So I started going through her recipe book, and this is what I discovered. Several things. As I started going through and pulling out her cards, I found original cards, original recipes that my mother has had. I'm 51 years old. She has been making this scrumptious pie my entire life, since I can remember. This is a pie that I made for my husband when we were teenagers. He says this is what hooked him in, this scrumptious pie recipe. This is a pie that I make for every family holiday. In fact, Brecken is actually making scrumptious pie right now. The crust is in the oven cooking. She's making it so we can take it to our family Christmas dinner tomorrow. So this is a recipe that has been in our family for years and years and years. A recipe is used and loved when the recipe card is torn and tagged tattered and has stains on it. So I started going through all her recipes. I found her favorite recipes. It was so interesting and so intriguing for me to see, and brought back so many memories to see some of her old cards in her handwriting. And as I went through the book, you could see her handwriting degrade as her health got worse. And then I found the original nuts and bolts recipe. I have shared this with you all on my channel before, and still to this day in my family, we have always argued how much hot sauce is supposed to be in these nuts and bolts. And it's right here, the original recipe. So now we all know, we can't argue about it anymore. I found recipes because my mother loved to put the person's name on the card that the recipe came from. There's cards from me. There's cards from my sister. There's cards from her friends. There's cards from my great grandmother, Nan. Nan used to live with us when I was first born. She lived with us for like 2 years, I think. From like when I was 6 months old until I was about 2.5. It was my dad's grandmother, and she lived with us. And there's her recipe, Nan's chocolate pie. I found so many of Nan's recipes in here. I guess in our family, food relates to memories. Is it that way with you? But I can go through my mother's recipes, and I have heard her talk about this dip she got at the Neiman Marcus department store forever ago. But I found the Neiman Marcus dip recipe in her recipe book. It was just so neat. It was like a walk down memory lane to go through the recipes, to see who they were from, to remember her mentioning all of these recipes and then seeing them in her handwriting. And I just had such a good time going through her recipe cards, deciding how to organize them, seeing the ones that are tried and true and torn and tattered and stained. Those are the best recipes. And so, of course, those got to be the stars of her recipe book. They're the first in every single chapter. And you know what? I have a recipe book of my own. This is mine. I have had this recipe book since I was in high school. And so I've always gone through here and just added recipes in my own handwriting. My daughters always talk about my recipe book, and I love my recipes. I love my book, and so does my mother. And that's why I'm so excited that her book is all put together. She's going to be able to easily flip through the pages, find exactly what she's looking for. And my mother doesn't even cook anymore. She can't cook. She can't stand up to cook. She can't hold the utensils. But what she does is she sits at the kitchen table with her recipe. My dad stands in the kitchen. He does the cooking. Mom gives him the ingredient, the quantity. He measures it. He actually does all the things. And if there's something my mother can do while she's sitting at the kitchen table, like she can stir some things or she can chop some cabbage to make slaw. But my dad does the majority of the cooking with my mother giving the instruction. So she is going to be so excited to get her recipe book where she can look through here and see every single recipe that she knows and loves and has been looking for. It's all cataloged right here. And I just think this is a wonderful, wonderful gift. And hopefully one day, oh my gosh, my sister and I are going to fight over this. We are going to fight over these original handwritten recipe cards. We're going to have to somehow come to an agreement about this. I just think it is such a wonderful gift. So if you have someone in your life that loves recipes, your mother, your sister, a grandmother, a daughter-in-law, a daughter, you can go on Amazon. That's where I got this book. They had so many different versions and variations of this book, but I wanted one that was a really good size. I wanted a classic look for my mother, and this was a perfect fit for her. But I'll put a link to this book in the description box below so you can go on Amazon and see where I got this one. But the funny story is, so I have had all of my mother's recipes for the past couple of days. Yesterday, my sister and I went to my mother's house to spend a little bit of time with her. So we're all sitting in the kitchen. My mom, my sister, my nephew, me, and my daughter and my dad. Well, my dad's, milling around the house. He's not really in the conversation, but the rest of us are in the kitchen talking, and we're eating lunch together, and we're just talking about whatnot. Well, all of a sudden, my dad comes in the kitchen, and he's rustling around. He's getting out something out of the freezer, and he's getting out a pan and measuring cups. And I turned around, I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm going to make a coconut pie." Okay, how random is that? It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Wednesday. He's making a coconut pie. We keep talking, and my dad says, "Brenda, how much sugar do I put in the coconut pie?" She said, "I don't know. You'll have to look in my recipe card." Well, he kept going. Next thing he says is, "Brenda, how much flour do I put in this coconut pie?" And she said, "Well, just give me my recipe card. I'll have to look at my recipe." And my sister and I, we looked at each other and our eyes got really big, and we're like, what is he doing? Because he knows the recipe card is not in the kitchen. I have the recipe card in my house. So we couldn't say anything. My sister and I are just sitting there staring at each other because my sister knew that I was putting together this recipe book. Well, about that time, my dad realizes what he's done. He is in the kitchen making something that he does not know how to make. He always relies on my mother to tell him the recipe, and you can see the moment that he realizes, uh-oh, the recipe card is not here. And so my dad's like, it's okay, Brenda. I remember how much flour to put in this coconut pie." Well, then my mother keeps saying, "Just give me my recipe card and I'll tell you what goes in the coconut pie. You're going to mess up the coconut pie." And my dad, you can imagine this conversation, right? My dad is deeper in trouble. He knows he doesn't know how to make the coconut pie. My sister and I realize, oh no, she's going to figure this out. My mother gets up with her walker, and we're like thinking, oh my gosh, she's going to walk around to the other side of the kitchen because she kept this recipe box in a drawer. We thought she's going to go over there and try to get this recipe box, and when she realizes that box is not in the drawer, she is going to go nuts. Thank goodness she did not do that. She went back to the bedroom for some reason, and as soon as she left, I went over to my dad and I whapped him on the arm. I said, "Dad, what were you thinking?" He's like, "I know, I'm sorry, I just wasn't thinking." We're like, "Really? A coconut pie? Something you don't know how to make? A coconut pie right now? You have to make a coconut pie." He said, "Well, I just wanted a coconut pie." So luckily, we got the pie made. My sister and I helped him. We figured out the ingredients. I've made enough pies in my life, and my sister has too, that we finagled our way through it without an official recipe. So my dad got the pie. It's an old school pie. You have to cook it on the stove. It has to boil. You have to stir it. So my dad ends up leaving the kitchen. I'm standing there stirring this pie, and it is just not thickening up. And I'm thinking, oh no, my mother is going to come over here and she's going to look at this pie and realize it's not getting thick, and then we're all in trouble. So I ended up turning up the heat. It was totally fine. He just didn't have it up enough, and it took me about 20 minutes of stirring that coconut pudding for it to get thick. But when it was done, we put the butter and the vanilla in it, and my sister and I got the heck out of there before my mother figured out where her recipe book was. I'm giving this to my mother on Christmas Day. I'm going to wrap it up in a big, beautiful box with a gorgeous bow, and I don't know what her reaction to this is going to be. I think when she sees her recipes all laid out, because when they were stuffed in this box, she really couldn't see them. She would fiddle through and she would pull out the one she was looking for, but it's kind of a different situation when they're all laid out in front of you and you can see the cards and the names and the handwriting and the recipes, and it really is a walk down memory lane. There's so many good memories in this recipe book, in such an unusual place, a place that you would never expect to find memories and expect to find tears and all of the things. But I'm excited to give this to my mother as her Christmas gift. And if you have someone that would enjoy this, definitely give them a recipe book. Doing this little project will bring up so many unexpected and welcomed emotions in a long walk down memory lane. And if you are interested in a lot of these recipes, I have shared so many of them with you on my channel. They're all in a playlist called In Renee's Kitchen. I will link that right up here for you, so you are welcome to check out those recipe videos for yourself. But that's my story time about my mother and my father and the recipe that made me super emotional. Have a great day.